What's going on, guys? Welcome back to a new episode. Coach Joe here with Heartletics.com. In today's episode, we're going to be talking all about a letter to my past self. Basically, what I would tell myself in the past, or, knowing what I know now from, let's just say, the past, I don't know, we'll say 5 years, we'll say 7 years, we'll say beginning, starting Heartletics, so about 6.5 years ago. Okay, what would I tell my the young buck, right? Joe Callari then, just getting started and everything like this. And then even though, right, I like saying it, this episode, right, just like most episodes, is just giving you guys experience, right, of stuff that I've been through, telling things with just a different story to help give you guys some inspiration, give you guys some motivation. Because from this episode, right, this is like the three biggest things that I've kind of learned going through a lot of trial and error, going through a lot of roller coaster rides, not only in business, but just life in general and everything like this. So, if I was writing a letter to my past self, okay, I would focus on telling myself three things. One, and we're going to dive into this. So, also, let me know if this is relatable. I see we got some people tuning in on Facebook. What's going on? We got Jeremy in there. We got Brian. Brian, what's going on, brother? Brian, this is going to be a good one, man. We're talking a lot about the mindset here. So, guys, if I was going to write a letter to my past self, okay, just starting off with Heartletics and just, going through the motions, knowing everything that I know now, what would I tell myself? Okay. Number one, I'm sure that you guys can relate to this, is stop trying to do it all by yourself. Now, with me, right, in for a business, okay, it was the same thing with also nutrition. I've tried, and this is going to sound maybe very relatable to you guys. I've tried the ketos, right? We're cutting out, your carbohydrates. I've tried intermittent fasting. I've tried all these different things, and I'll go more into details about that on, let's say, a future, podcast episode. But I've tried all these different things. And it wasn't until I actually got certified in nutrition where I actually learned how like calories work, metabolism works, right? Macronutrients, micronutrients, like how it actually applies and works in the body. Okay. But you can see here that by doing it myself, like, hey, everybody, told me to do keto, and that's what you kept on hearing about when it came about, is it was the shiny object, right? Everybody was trying and everybody was falling in love with it, right? You cut out your carbs, you lose weight, right? Like that. So at the end of the day, right, I think I learned just to stop trying to do it all by myself in terms of business, right? Because with keto, right, I never got the sustainable results I wanted. Same thing with intermittent fasting, right? Intermittent fasting created like this binge eating disorder that I had and I had to overcome, right? But I would say that those things just were only short-term success. It wasn't the long-term results that I was after. Same thing with business, okay? You guys don't understand how much money I lost trying to do it all on my own in forms of like, okay, I know the knowledge, right, of how to, help somebody lose anywhere from 20 to 50 pounds, have more confidence, have more energy. I can change somebody's life, right? I can definitely do that. But business is a lot more than that. It's marketing, it's sales, right? It's advertisements, it's different things with administration on the back end, it's systems in place, it's so much, And I didn't know any of that at all. I just knew how to help somebody and how I can transform their life. But obviously, like, to help a complete, or to, I'll say this, to persuade, right? A complete stranger that doesn't know you at all, that you can help that person, that's very hard to do. And I didn't know how to do that, So I lost a lot of money, trying like different things like Facebook ads that I really didn't know, trying different things within my business that I really didn't know how to do it, how to get in clients. And like I said, the first 2 years, I lost a lot of money. It wasn't until my third year where, this was my past accountant that I had, he's like, hey, dude, like, you need to stop doing this. Like, you're in the red every single year. Like, you need to give it up, man. And that was when I fired him and I hired a new accountant, but I also hired a business coach. I had like literally the last $10,000 in my savings account, and I hired a business coach. And he taught me, right, literally how to run and have a successful business and how to grow a business. And that's the most important part. And I didn't know anything about that. right? Like all I knew was how to help somebody. And now I can help out lots of people, right? Because I have an amazing team, I have systems in place, right? But I had to do it, by accepting that I don't know what to do and I needed to hire somebody to teach me, right? A business coach. And so the first thing that I would tell myself, right, writing this letter to my past self is stop trying to do it all by yourself. Now, those 2 years cost me a lot of money, right? Plain and simple, trying to run a business by myself. I would say the first 3 years, honestly. The third year, I plateaued. I no profit, right? But no, not in the red, right? So that was a good year for me. I always remember that. But the first 2 years, I was in the red. I lost a lot of money, okay? And so I would have saved money, but not only that, I would have saved a lot of time. But not only that, looking back at it, man, it was 2 years, right? If not 3 years of not really having a knowing how to promote my business and how to run a business. And we've been scaling ever since. I've hired a business coach, right? It's just been constantly growing. 2 years, I could have been helping out more people, right? Like, so if I'm writing this letter to my past self, I'm going to be like, Joe, stop being an idiot, right? You're going to waste more money trying to do this by yourself. Plus, you're going to miss out on the opportunity to change even more people's lives. This is 2 years of people's lives that you can be changing now, right? So, number one, circle highlight, stop trying to do it all by yourself. Mike Berry, he's a perfect example of this, okay? He recently, I would say what, maybe 3, 4 months ago, got signed up inside of our coaching program. Say about 4 months ago, right? Got signed up for our coaching program in Heartletics. And in 7 weeks inside of our coaching program, he not only got off of his blood pressure medication, not only got off of his cholesterol medication, but he reversed his type 2 diabetes. How powerful and how awesome is that, right? Completely changed this man's health. But like, here's the thing. Now, before, right, we decided to get started with coaching, we need to backtrack because 2 years ago, right, from current state right now, Mike and I had a discovery call. And at the time, he couldn't afford the bare minimum, which was $500 to get started with coaching. And at that time, he wasn't a type 2 diabetic. He wasn't on cholesterol medications. I believe he was just on blood pressure medication. And so he went for the past 2 years, okay, trying to do this all on his own. The keto, the fasting, the carnivore, the paleo, Weight Watchers, you name it. And what happened? His health got worse to where when we had our second discovery call, he told me plain and simple when I asked him, I said, Mike, the first time you didn't get signed up for coaching. What makes today different where we're deciding to take action on our goals? And Mike said, quote, unquote, it's costing me a lot more not progressing, not getting professional help. And it was because 2 years prior, he wasn't on all these medications. He wasn't a type 2 diabetic, but now he was. But current state right now, because he did the right decision, right, with signing up for a coach that knew how to help him and how he could create sustainable habits for his lifestyle, Mike in 7 weeks is no longer a type 2 diabetic. He's off all of his medications. So it's really empowering. Okay. So that's the first thing that I just want to say is just like, if I'm writing this letter to my past self, right? One, stop trying to do it all by yourself. It could be costing you more. And maybe that could be relatable for you in any situation. Okay. That could be buying a broken down car because you don't want to spend money on a newer car. And then, that broken down, cheaper model, something happens, right? Transmission breaks, something happens where you end up spending a lot more putting the repairs into it than if you would have just got a, newer model. It happens all the time, right? So that's number one. Number two, okay, if I'm writing this letter to my past self, is Joe, people are going to come in your life and people are going to leave your life. People are always going to come in and go. You just got to accept it. And it's hard for me to accept that because sometimes, and I'm sure once again this sounds relatable to you, you build up relationships with people, right? Like especially me, like I'm very outgoing and I like talking to people, right? I'm a people person, I guess you should say. And I got to understand that, people are going to come into your life for a reason or a season, right? Or a lifetime. Like my wife, she's in here for a lifetime. Oakley, right? Family, lifetime, right? Coaches, clients, lifetime for sure, right? We're all family. But, there's other people that's going to come in my life and maybe they're just there to teach me something, right? They're in there for a reason. And then other people are going to come in there for a season. And I just need to learn how to just kind of let that go, right? Because growing up, right, the past 5 years, there was friends that I had, I should say, so even some family members that, and acquaintances and coworkers, right, where you just realize here that, hey, sometimes people are going to come in your life for, once again, a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And it's kind of like what, Steve Jobs says, you can never really connect the dots looking forward in life. You can only really connect the dots looking backwards in life. And, my mantra that I like to say to myself is that everything is happening right now in my favor. And I highly recommend that steal that, right? It's just something that's comforting about saying that, for at least for myself, right? Everything that is happening right now in this present moment, right, is happening in my favor. It's all going to work out in the end, basically. And then the last thing, right? So number one, right? This list that I'm going to, or letter that I'm writing to myself, right? The top three things that I want my past self to know, right? Is obviously number one, stop trying to do it all by yourself. Number two is people who are going to come into your life and leave in your life, and that's okay, right? And then lastly, number three is to learn from your past mistakes, right? To learn from the mistakes to inspire others. Hence why I'm making this episode right now, is because I want you guys to understand that I made a lot of mistakes, a lot of mistakes. But at the end of the day, I will say this, okay? Even though I'm constantly making a big mistakes, right? It's the inevitable, right? It's going to constantly happen. I want you guys to understand this, that your life has so much power to the story that you tell yourselves, okay? And I want you guys to know that it's not just you and your story. There's going to be people inside of your story. There's going to be characters, your family, your kids, your coworkers. You guys can always have a story to tell to help inspire others. Okay. We hear it quite often, right? If, let's say, somebody's like in their 50s or their 60s, they're like, man, how is this going to work for me? Or, it's too late, Joe. Like, I've already accepted defeat. I've had so many, back surgeries, or, I've been overweight for so many years and I've tried so many things. Like, guys, we all have a past, right? I'm sure there's several things that we regret about our past, but I want you guys to understand this, that your story is never ending, right? Like, if you woke up today, there's breath in your lungs, like, congratulations. Like, that's another page added onto your story. Learn from your mistakes. Everybody has them, okay? Learn from them, use them, and twist them in a way to share your story to help inspire others. For example, like for me, right? Like, a big inspiration of mine is my son. I want him to look up to me as like the superhero. But what I want him to know the most, right, is like, hey, his daddy was ambitious. Like, I wasn't afraid to fail. I wasn't afraid to voice my opinion and express my feelings. I wasn't afraid to go after it, right? Like, I always have this thing in the back of my head, like, what if I fail? Well, at the end of the day, like, it doesn't matter, like, my resume has on there that I worked in a grocery store and that I worked at a movie theater. These are my first two jobs. And, like, regardless, if I ever fail and like really it hits the fan, I'm gonna go work at a movie theater because that was the funnest job I ever had in my life besides what I do now. But, like, at the end of the day, it's gonna be perfectly fine. And I think that so many of us as guys need to understand that, hey, you've probably been through some situations in your life. I know I definitely have, where it seemed kind of rocky. It seemed kind of tough, and at the time, maybe you couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, and that's okay. I definitely had those experiences before in my life, but they've created these barriers. And what I challenge you guys to do is, obviously, if I'm writing this letter to my past self, right? I challenge you to do the same. Like, number three for me is learn from my past mistakes so I can inspire others. Every failure is just a setback for a better comeback, I should say. Now, I think here's the mistake that most people make, is that when they fail, they give up and then they go back to their old ways. But when they try again, they go back to the thing that initially made them fail in the first time. Let's put this into terms of health and fitness. How many have tried cutting out carbs multiple times? How many have tried cutting out sugar and alcohol in their favorite foods multiple times? And multiple times means at some point it didn't work. You went back to your old ways. But why did you go back again? You know what they say, like history constantly repeats itself over and over and over again. Albert Einstein said it best, right? The definition of insanity is doing the same things over and over again and expecting different results. So when I learn from my mistakes, trust me, I learn from them. I know, hey, life is short. We're not granted tomorrow, like at all. But at the end of the day, I know for a fact here that I got a little son, right? My little son Oakley, I got a little boy. He's looking and seeing everything I do. Everything, especially right now, 3.5 years old, like everything. He sees it, he absorbs it, right? He's so early on in his development of life, right? With his subconscious, what I tell him, right? Like it's getting in there, it's creating this mindset. It's creating his future almost, right? It's his belief systems. And I want him to see like, hey, his daddy wasn't afraid of anything. His daddy always did what he said he was going to do. His daddy didn't just talk the talk. His daddy walked the walk, you know? And I may do childish and foolish things with my son, but at the end of the day, like I see like where he's getting and like what is happening. I mean, like we say affirmations and like, to get him to say affirmations, sometimes it's hard, but we play a little game with it. We'll say like, Oakley, like, let's have a scream match. Who can say our affirmations the loudest? And it's the cutest thing because like we're in the living room or his playroom, we're just screaming at each other like, I am successful. I am brave. I am courageous. I am strong. Just yelling at each other. And I know that's the effect that is happening in his mind without him even knowing it, is that he's planting these seeds, right, into his subconscious mind. I am strong. I am successful, right? I am wonderful. I am brave, right? I like all these different things. And I want you guys to understand this story, right, that you would be writing to your past self, just give it to your kid. That's your call to action today. Is like everybody has a story. So like, hey, from the past 5 years and all the money that I lost and all these people's lives that I missed out on because I didn't hire a coach earlier, and the same thing about people coming in my life and I felt like I wasted a lot of let's say energy, right, trying to keep people in my life when they just weren't meant out to be, right, plain and simple. And lastly, like using learning from my mistakes to help inspire others. I encourage you guys, make this like have fun with it. Put on some, nice little music, whatever, and just write three things, or just write out a letter to yourself and just talk. Like, how cool would that be if you just wrote out a letter, talking about the three things or talking about some things that, hey, this is what you would tell your past self, and you actually gave it to your kid, or start teaching your kid a little bit about that. How different would their life be when they grow up? That's why, like my son, like he sees me do push-ups and sit-ups. He's doing push-ups and sit-ups himself. He sees me, right, saying my affirmations to myself in the mirror. He's saying affirmations to himself, right? Like monkey see, monkey do. And it's these stories, right, that we constantly tell ourselves that's either like, making a brighter future for ourselves or it's making a darker future for ourselves. We don't, I think, truly understand the effect of our words and the energies of how we say things. But also at the end of the day, I think that so many guys are a slave to these self-limiting beliefs that they have in their head because they wrote the stories. And I just want to encourage you guys, right? Like, write a new story. Just because something happened to you in the past doesn't mean it has to happen to you anymore. Doesn't mean it has to happen to you in the future. If let's say you tried so many times to burn body fat and lose weight and better your health and continue to cut out carbs, once again, try a different way for success with helping you burn body fat. Maybe not trying cutting out carbs. Try something else, right? I encourage you, like most of the information that you guys can at least see inside of the Facebook community group and then hear about on the podcast or watch on the YouTube channel, I talk about everything in depth. We even have like a free fat loss guide that's at heartletics.com, and a free, fat loss coaching video that even goes over like these 7 essential fat loss habits that we go over, to our clients. And this is what helps them lose anywhere from 20 to 50 pounds, in 90 days. But you got to understand this, like your story is not over yet. So the call to action is start writing a new story. Have fun with it. Maybe write a letter to your past self, and then maybe write a letter to, I don't know, your future self. What would be the difference? Like, what is the past self that you can learn from, but also make sure that, hey, like maybe your kids, maybe your, I don't know, your coworkers, somebody can at least feel inspired from your story, because I'm sure there was lots of highs and I'm sure there's lots of lows. That's like that with anybody. So use the lows as, hey, this is what helped us get a better high. This is what helped us get through those hard times, and use that, as a story to inspire others. I think that's only fair. That's at least what I'm trying to do with my stories. And then obviously, just make sure that you write that new story, right? The future self. Where is it that you're trying to get to? And if you can mentally and get all the clarity of like where it is that you're trying to get to and have that all written out, awesome. You're probably going to be more ahead than others because there's at least a goal that you can see. And when you mix a goal that you can see with a deep down desire, a why, right? Like why you're going to do it, like what's going to wake you out of bed in the morning, what's going to motivate you, what's going to help you put one foot in front of the other, guess what? You're going to be unstoppable as long as you don't give up, And sometimes, I don't know, maybe you just need some help in your corner. Maybe you just need some motivation. Maybe you just need some inspiration. And that's all I'm trying to do with today's episode, is inspire you guys to know that, hey, your story is not over yet, right? You woke up this morning, right? Awesome, great. That's a blank page. Write out a new day for you. And then tomorrow, the same thing. And then progressing. And anytime you get stuck in life, understand this, it's just a chapter, right? You're just one flipping the page over, right, from a brand new chapter. And that book's not closed yet. So as long as you have that imaginary sight, right, as long as you have your goals out there with the light at the end of the tunnel, and you're working and you're in alignment with that, you're going to reach your goals, right? That's going to be the inevitable as long as you don't give up. With that being said, I really hope that you guys got some value from today's episode. If you did, please do me a favor and share this on your social media page. And definitely make sure to tune into the next one, because the next episode, we're going to be diving into goals and how to not make them feel like they're on a pedestal, and how to set up easy to do, easy systems to better help you achieve your goals in life. It's going to be a good one, I promise. With that being said, this has been Coach Joe with Heartletics.com, and I'll talk to you guys in the next episode. Peace out, Girl Scout.